Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Backpage Breakdown. I'm your host, Antwan Staley. You can always follow me at Antwan Staley on all social media platforms with me today, I got a special guest, my colleague at the New York Daily News, Pat Leonard, who covers the Giants. We figured we'd bring him in, especially with the Jets and Giants playing this weekend. Pat, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Antwan. Can't be as good as you. I'm coming off a bye week, man. I don't even know when the Giants bye week is. I think it's like December. By that time, the season's already over, basically, for this team. So, I'm gassed. I mean, how you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, I think it was a good time to have a bye week, especially with everything that's been going on with the Jets too. I usually like the bye week, like in the middle of the season, like November. That way,
Mhm.
you don't feel like you're burnt out, like when it comes to December or early October. But it kind of worked out for the Jets too, especially considering all the injuries that they've had recently too. But before we get into that too, I just want to let everybody know that Bet Online is the place to go for solid sports betting. The last major pro sports league kicks off this week, and BetOnline is your top spot for all the NBA action this season. From MLB postseason, NFL, college football, and NHL in full swing, BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. Get everything NBA at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access for every sport anytime. Head to Bet Online today and get in on the action. And don't forget to use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online is where the game starts. First off, I want to ask you before we get into everything. I always wondered this too, like for your videos, like showing you coming into the stadium and with the suit on, and they were like, "Who's recording that?"
Oh, yeah, good question. Well, it depends on the week. I mean, usually it's either Jordan Raanan from ESPN or Charlotte Carroll from The Athletic. Connor Hughes also has gotten into the action as well, and we've kind of turned it into a little bit of a community down there. You get good FaceTime with the players and the coaches as they come in, and then you get to see their fits, and then also hopefully make a little bit of fun of myself and us, pretending like we're on the same level as them, which we are obviously not.
I always thought that was pretty cool and funny that you just do that before the game too, because I always look for those videos, and I thought, yeah, that's a good question. That I always wanted to ask you that, but I just never really thought about it. But
Yeah,
I figured
yeah.
Connor was probably in on it too somehow.
Oh, Connor's loving it. You know what I like about it too, Antoine, is the way it started was I wake up on a game day. Now, obviously, you and I know, like, if it's an 8 o'clock game, I mean, no matter how much you get done early, at some point you're going to be twiddling your thumbs. But
Yes.
for a 1 o'clock game, I wake up, I'm ready to go. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Exactly.
ready to do something and cover the game, ready for the football. And I know the players get that way too. So for me, this was a great way to be occupied and do something that, created some fun content and also entertain myself, right? Because otherwise I'm sitting there going, when's the game starting? I don't feel like touching up a notebook and having another bagel, right? So it's a good way to pass the time.
How has some of the Giants players or just some of the personnel kind of reacted to your video?
They like it. I actually ran into an executive from another team who I haven't seen in person in probably a year recently. And I said hi, and they didn't even see me coming. So it wasn't like they had time to prepare for a comment or anything. And I kind of came around the corner, saw the guy, said, "Hey, what's going on?" He says hi. And the first thing out of his mouth is, "I love the fashion videos." That was the first thing he said. The Giants players, they like it. Actually, it's funny you're asking me this now because this past week when they played Washington, I do the videos every week. And this week, I had almost every guy reposting like my individual videos of them walking in. And, it's interesting, Antoine, like I'm not the first person as far as compared to teams to film guys walking in their outfits. Obviously, it's a big thing in the NBA, especially like TNT does it with
Oh yeah.
guys walking in. But in football, even the Giants and the teams, I see the Giants are doing more of it and trying to do more of it themselves. They have a sponsor now, and it's something that's caught on. But I think I get everything up quicker, and the guys really want people to see it, right? If they spend time on the outfit, they want people to see it. So I literally probably had at least 10 of the players reposting my videos this week on Instagram.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Like you said, you see more of it in the NBA, and with the season kicking off this week, yeah, you'll see a ton of it, especially with the Nuggets kicking off and the Lakers and Warriors too. But yeah, I mean, to kind of get into the Giants, like, how has it been this year. I mean, obviously they had some ups and downs too, but they
Oh
are
man.
coming off a big win against the Commanders too. So just talk about them and kind of where you see them are right now at this point.
Yeah. Well, putting it in context with the Jets, the only team that had a harder schedule than the Jets at the start of the year was the Giants. So in fairness to them right off the bat is they're coming right out of the gate playing the Cowboys, the Bills, the Niners, the Dolphins, who turned into what they've turned into. And so they really weren't able to catch their breath at all until playing Washington. They even had a trip where we were out there for a week on the West Coast with Arizona and San Francisco where they couldn't even come back home. So a lot of primetime games. It's just been a lot of wear and tear on my energy, but on the team as well. And when you're losing games and you're also doing it in the national spotlight, there's nowhere to hide. They couldn't lay their eggs, on a 1 o'clock window with 10 games going on where some people saw it, some people didn't. And if people did see it, it was during film review on Wednesday. Like it was everyone's watching Thursday, Sunday, Monday Night Football
Yeah.
as the Giants look like one of the worst teams in the league. Now, they did get right in some ways against Washington, not the way they normally do. Usually they score a bunch of points and they feel really good coming out of it. This was more of a desperation to win so that they don't just sell off every single, significant piece on their roster at the deadline. Now there's at least a little bit of belief in the building that with this defense, with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback right now, with Saquon Barkley back in the lineup, that maybe they can still make something out of this season, which really is going to have to do with having a lot of games in the division on the back end of the schedule. But Antwan, I'll just say this. This is a big game for the Giants because they're 2-5. It's a big game for them because if they lose it, they're 2-6. The deadline's 2 days away, but they really need to beat the Jets. Like ownership, front office, head coach, the way this season started for them, Antwan, if they lose to the Jets in any kind of embarrassing fashion, let alone just lose in general, there's going to be a price to pay. I don't know who's going to pay it, but there's going to be a price to pay in the Giants building.
Yeah, it's been interesting just following, the Giants from, from my vantage point, especially covering the Jets too, because, the Jets have also had their ups and downs too, but it seems like now they're starting to, rise up a little bit. Obviously, the big win against the Eagles was huge before the bye week as well. Kind of hopefully, maybe give them some momentum. We thought the last year when they beat Buffalo in their bye week, they would give them some momentum then, but they kind of floundered down the stretch and lost, 6 straight games to end the year and only won 1 game after they beat the Bills too. So, I think just coming into this, I think it's big for both teams. And I think we'll probably talk about this in advance, not that I'm trying to do your job for you, but I think, it's big for obviously the Jets because they've always felt like they're the little brother to the Giants. And, now's the time where they could essentially kind of punch them in the mouth and knock them out essentially. And then you got the Giants, who, like you said, coming off a big win against the Commanders, definitely need a win. And then what better way to get a victory against a team that's, in the same space as you, and also have taken up a lot of the headlines throughout the offseason and also into the season too as well.
Well, let me ask you. So Robert Saleh obviously was talking some trash about how they're embarrassing these good quarterbacks, right? So we're sitting right here in the big week where it's only going to build and build the momentum up until this game, right? Who's the Jet who's going to say something this week? Who's going to talk their talk? Who's going to kind of like the match on kind of talking trash on the Giants this week? Or do you think they're not going to do that? Are they going to soft play it or soft pedal it, even though that does not seem to be their style?
It might not be like a firm trash talking. I can see that coming more from the Giants side than the Jets, but I think you could see a guy like a Garrett Wilson, like is very motivated to playing, against a team like the Giants too as well. Sauce, I would say to an extent, if he's able to play, he's still in concussion protocol, which is crazy. But
Wow.
him and DJ Reed are still as you know, one of the last few hurdles of concussion protocol is actual practice fully, and that's something they can't do until really Wednesday. So I
Good point.
imagine they'll probably come off the list on Wednesday. But yeah, him and DJ Reed have been on the protocol. Actually, Reed has missed the last 2 games due to concussion too, as well. So yeah, I mean, they desperately need both of those guys. But I imagine they both play. But yeah, I think a guy like a DJ Reed or a Sauce Gardner could possibly get motivated too, and also the offensive lineman. If you remember what happened in the preseason
Oh,
with Aaron
yeah.
Rodgers, you know, I'm sure they did not take too kindly, about what happened as
Well,
well.
so here's what's funny about that. Jihad Ward. So Jihad Ward had built up a lot of capital in the locker room with the media last year, always available. And also, especially, like guys who speak for the team after losses and take accountability. You always admire that. That's a good quality to have, right? And so he did all of that last season, especially in their lowest moments. Like obviously they go to the playoffs, but he was a guy who took a lot on his shoulders. This year, Antwan, since he said that about Aaron Rodgers and talked his talk, I don't know if he's done a single interview since. He has hid in the back. He takes his boom box. He does his the hot tub and all that. And I still like him. I appreciate him. I frankly, knowing the way the Giants are working right now, it would not surprise me if the front office read him the riot act about putting them out there like that, and that he has decided that it's not worth his time to talk as much as he did. But that'll be an interesting thing to look at during the week, during the game, and after the game, because he has really avoided making any more headlines since. But how can you avoid it at this point, right? Because it's
Exactly.
obviously on the Jets' mind.
Exactly. That's why I figured he probably, if anything, it would come from one of the offensive linemen who I think would say something too as well. Because that was not really well received in the locker room too. And if Aaron was around, like he would definitely have something to say, as you would know too as well.
Right. He might do one of his drop a bomb from some media appearance on like Thursday, right? Like not even from like the locker room. Like he'll just do some podcast or radio show or McAfee or something and just slide Jihad Ward's name in and like the fuse and walk off.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, I want to talk about the two quarterbacks on both sides too, because it's kind of
Mm.
an interesting dynamic. We had two guys that were not the guys at the beginning of the year and then have been
That's right.
replaced for injury reason. I'll start with Tyrod. I think is it just me, or does it seem like the Giants are playing better under center with Tyrod Taylor there?
Yeah, they look better. It's important to say right off the bat that they're averaging 11 and a half offensive points a game with Tyrod, and they averaged 11 with Daniel. So it looks a lot better, but it's only resulted in a half a point more per game. Okay. So just to be fair to Jones. That said, the team responds to Tyrod. Not that they don't to Jones, but they respond to him. They clearly have a lot of respect for him, even as a backup. He's a calm demeanor in the huddle, off on the sideline, off the field. It's just like one of those steady presences of we know what we're gonna get. You could even see when he broke the team down in the locker room after the win over Washington. There's a freeze frame of the locker room, all the guys looking at him as he kind of puts his fist up and says, "Bring it in." You can just see the way guys are looking at him. And Dable's been fawning over him as well. He's been pushing the ball down the field more than Jones had prior to his injury. I will say, though, that the offensive line has gotten incrementally better, and also Saquon's come back into the lineup. So those are two factors. But your assessment is true. Yes, the offense has looked more capable the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was gonna touch on the offensive line too, because we, with Daniel, I mean, he was back there getting killed like at times too, like the games that I've seen. And then with Tyrod, it seems like now they're at least serviceable. Like they're doing a much better job. Is it him getting the ball out quicker? Is it what is he doing to, help out the offensive line?
Yeah, well, Justin Pugh's addition has helped, and Pugh was not very good at left tackle against Washington. Let me just say that. But in the Buffalo game and just in general, he's an NFL player, and just no offense to anybody, but there were guys they were playing early in the season, especially out of position. They just weren't playing like NFL players. And honestly, it's a personnel problem. This is the front office, Joe Shane and Brian Dable, putting guys in a position to fail rather than succeed. Just to be honest. But the offensive line has helped, has been a little bit better. They got Tyree Phillips back from the Eagles practice squad, who they cut at the end of camp. They shouldn't have. He started in place of Evan Neal last week at right tackle and was serviceable. So that's been a little bit better. Tyrod also, though, has been pointing and shooting. He really has, like, whatever the play call is, he's letting it rip when his back foot hits the ground. He hasn't been holding on to it. To be honest, Antwan, he was getting into games early in the season when it was a blowout or Jones got banged up, and he was playing a little recklessly. And it was kind of like, where is this coming from? This isn't the Tyrod we saw in camp last year or even in a lot of camp this year. Why is he being so reckless? Once he became the starter, Buffalo, Washington, suddenly everything is precise. Everything is on point. Now, they didn't score any points in the second half against Washington. So, and that was really the offensive line wearing down against the Washington defensive front. And Antwan, I don't got to tell you what that means for facing the Jets defensive front for 4 quarters. But yeah, it's been a little bit of both. It's been a little bit of Tyrod and a little bit of the line.
Yeah, I just find both quarterback situations interesting. When Zach came in, obviously replacing Aaron, he struggled against the Cowboys. I mean, you got to go against Michael Parsons, especially you know how that is with any offensive line, especially considering the state the Jets were in, and he just just demolished that offensive line.
Well,
And then they go up against the Patriots too. Like, what did you want to say?
I wanted to ask you about Zach in the sense of, like, sometimes judging the Giants games, it's not always, but sometimes it's as simple as who's the quarterback they're playing. Because Wink Martindale, if the way he brings pressure and calls games, and he really has been, as people say, in his bag lately. If you just write down on the sheet who they've played, right? Dallas and Dak Prescott, loss. Arizona and Josh Dobbs, win, barely, but win, right? They did get to Brock Purdy, and he was throwing the ball up for grabs. Niners still a much more talented team and win. But they play Washington, they play Sam Howell, they get a victory. He had no idea what to do with the balls. They were 1 for 15 on third downs. This is all a long-winded way of asking you, is this as simple as saying the Giants have a chance because Zach Wilson will struggle to handle Wink Martindale, or do you think Zach is capable of being better than the average quarterback against a DC in a pressure like this?
I will say that, I think this year he's handled the pressure a lot better than he has in previous years, especially last year. I mean, teams have come out in pressure where you look at the Chiefs too, the Eagles, they brought some pressure too, and Zach was able to handle it, as well as he could. I mean, doesn't look great on paper. I mean, it's nothing flashy. He's not throwing tons of touchdowns, but I think what they're asking him to do, just don't turn the ball over. Just don't put us in a position to try to win the games. And that's what they've done. I mean, their third down conversion is the lowest in the league. That their red zone touchdown rate is, I believe, it's next to last. But they feel like that if Zach just doesn't turn the ball over, then they have an opportunity to win. We're going to find out this week how good he has gotten better with the pressure, because they know it. He knows it. We all know it. Wink Martindale's going to send a ton of pressure his way. It's just going to be up to him to make the right reads, and also at times let him check to other certain spots too, because the Giants are, they're going to bring it, exotic blitzes, probably blitzes that he's not going to always see, and then he has to make those reads. And if he doesn't, then the pressure could get in his face. He can turn the ball over, and we've seen it, especially when the thing I always notice about Zach Wilson is he could be fine, if he doesn't turn the ball over. But once he starts turning the ball over at times, sometimes it could be a snowball effect where, one could become two and two become three, and, you just get in a bad situation. So if you're the Giants, that's what gives you hope, where, you can get that pressure in his face and also force multiple turnovers. And that will give you an opportunity to win the game.
Yeah, I think it was Terry McLaurin. I have to go back and look, but someone in Washington said, you just can't let a defense blitz your face off like that about the Giants. So the Giants will blitz Zach's face off and see how he has to handle it, I guess. Wait, how does the Jets line look right now coming out of the bye injury wise?
We'll see. Joe Tippin is hurt. He's hurt for the thigh injury against the Eagles. They say he's a quickie. The thing about Robert Saleh is you have to take his injury reports with a grain of salt. So he initially said Tippin would be out a while, and then now there's sudden, I think it's some gamesmanship there saying that, oh well, he's a quick healer, he might be able to play. My thing is probably not. He probably won't play this week. We'll see, whether he plays. If he doesn't, then it also hurts the Jets offensive line, because you already had to move Mekhi Becton. AVT Elijah Vera Tucker is out for the season with a torn Achilles. You put Max Mitchell at right tackle. It's starting to be kind of what it was. They had 11 different players starting the offensive line last year. I believe at this point you're about 7 or 8, players on the offensive line that have started games. That's a lot, and we're not even halfway through the year. So it's not great. It's not a great situation by any means, but I will say they have a lot more depth than what they did a year ago.
Oh man, that Giants Washington game, Antoine, 18 punts. And it sounds like you're describing to me like that's what we're gonna see
Yeah,
again
I
in
think
this
we're going
one.
to see a very low scoring.
Oh
I would be surprised if either one. If these teams get to 20, I might be surprised,
yeah,
honestly.
the fashion video is gonna be the highlight of the day, man.
I can definitely see it being a 17, 14, 17, 30, somewhere around there type of game. A lot of both of these teams have really good special team, great kickers.
Mhm.
Gano, and obviously, Zerline has been a veteran. He's been around too. I think that's where a lot of the Jets points have come from and running the ball. If the Giants can slow down Brees Hall, that's what it's going to come down to. If they can't, then it could be a long day for their defense. But how has it seemed like the Giants defense is also playing better as of late too. And Kayvon, how you think Tavon Thibodeau has been doing?
Yeah, Thibodeau, he has, I believe it's what is it, 5.5 sacks, and he only had 4 as a rookie all last year in 12 games. So the sacks are there. Um, he has not been actually as strong of a run defender as he was last year, as consistent, I should say. He is setting the edge, but like when they played Miami, he wasn't making plays on the edge in a game like that. Could be better, but he's not like the problem, I would say, right? Certainly if you look at those 2 high draft picks, Evan Neal is the problem on the offensive line, whereas Kayvon is a guy who's giving you something. You just want to still see a little bit more. The thing to look for him in this game is as a rookie, like he only had 4 sacks, but when he made plays, it always seemed like they were in huge spots. Like he, stripped the ball from Lamar Jackson at the end of a win over Baltimore. He sack fumble, scored, fell on the ball for a touchdown against Washington with them backed up on the goal line in December last year. So like this is the kind of game, all eyes on New York. You might not hear from him for the first 3 quarters, frankly. And then in the fourth quarter with a tie game, he really does. That's something Kayvon has. He has uh, that it factor or that recognition of, okay, this is the moment, I'm going to go get it. And that was something they identified pre-draft. So that would be something to
Mhm.
look for. But yeah, defensively, they've played very well and they've been a good unit most of the year, if not excellent at times. Their problem early in the year, though, was they were negating some of their positives by slipping off tackles, right? They would make a play and then it would be a 3rd and 19 screen to Debo, and guys either are slipping off of him or not even getting to him. And so what they've seemed to have corrected a little bit of is those missed tackles. They're still there. And there were a couple plays in that Washington game where at the end where like there was a deep ball to Terry McLaurin against Deontay Banks, who actually played pretty well, but he catches it and kind of falls as he's catching it. Banks, thinking he's down already, immediately starts talking to the official about, McLaurin tugging his jersey. McLaurin gets up and runs into the end zone, and it looked like a touchdown, but thankfully for Banks, Xavier McKinney had kind of slipped by and tapped McLaurin on the helmet just barely as he was his knee was down on the ground. So there's this slim margin right now that the Giants are teetering on. And I will tell you this though, if they lose this game, it will be because of their offense. When they lose, it's been because of their offense, not their defense.
Yeah, it sounds like these teams are very similar because I feel like, especially with the Giants defense playing better, it just seems like both of them have problems offensively too. And I brought up Thibodeau because they're him and Jermaine Johnson are kind of linked together because one, I think the Giants and Jets were both kind of looking at both of these players. In particular, I know a lot of Jets fans wanted Thibodeau possibly when he came out too, and yeah, that was kind of the book on him. Like at times at college, like he would give you these flashy plays, but consistency or lack thereof sometimes would be a bit of an issue. But yeah, I
Yep.
think Jermaine has also played better as of late too, as well. And he was the guy that's part of that 22 class, especially with Sauce Gardner and also Garrett Wilson too. And now you got not him starting, over Carl Lawson, who potentially out there in trade rumors too as well. So yeah,
Saw
I
that.
definitely think he definitely. I mean, they would like to get rid of him. I mean, it's just a matter of would it be any takers too? Like Dalvin Cook, I think the same thing too. It just hasn't worked out for whatever reason. And you got a guy like Brees Hall, who's I think is a freak because he's coming like he tore his Achilles a year ago now, but he's
Jeez.
played well like the first few games of the season. And sometimes it takes a full year, as you know, especially with Saquon, what happened to him to come back from Achilles injury and be kind of productive the way that he was.
Yeah, and interestingly, you bring up Thibodeau and Jets fans maybe wanting him, and the Giants in that draft. Remember, they really had eyes for Sauce Gardner, and then the Jets take him, and so the Giants now end up with Thibodeau and then Deontay Banks, who they get in this year's draft instead of getting Sauce and then maybe an edge somewhere else. So it's like Jermaine Johnson and Sauce in that same draft versus Thibodeau and Deontay Banks on the Giants. Those are kind of like the two packages, the two options, and how do those work out in this game and in the future is fun to follow.
Yeah, for sure. Like we kind of touched on it, like the importance of winning this game, and for both teams. And I think you look at the schedule too. Like I think it opens up for both of these teams potentially to go on a bit of a run too. I know the Giants have the Raiders next week, and then the Jets will play them crazy enough the weekend after. So just
Yeah.
talk about that. Like potentially if the Giants win this game, what it could do, what kind of spark could it have for this team?
Yeah, no, that's well said. I think, well, I'll say this, Antwan, and not to take any credit away from the Giants, because they are with their defense, the way they're playing, if they're capable offensively, and as I reported last week, like Dable has taken control of the offensive meetings, or at least he did going into the Washington game. So clearly it's like DEFCON 1 emergency, like all hands on deck. I'm coaching the offensive line myself rather than leaving it to my position coaches. So good sign, at least, that the head coach is going above and beyond now because he recognizes how dire the situation is. Hopefully, you see results like you did against Washington. I just came out of the Washington game, Antwan, feeling like, you know, there were so many game situation mistakes that Ron Rivera and Eric Bieniemy specifically made as coaches that helped Washington lose that game. Even though the Giants got the win and there's encouraging things to look at, I saw that game and I said, if Washington were coached even kind of well, they would have won the game. And so I look at the Jets who beat the Eagles. I feel like it's hard for me to say the Giants can win that. When they play the Raiders, now, yes, I do think with the Raiders defense, especially with the quarterback play they've been getting, and Josh McDaniels being a questionable game manager as well, I think the Giants have a chance. But on the road, New England Patriots come in. I don't have much respect for what the Patriots are right now, even after the win over Buffalo. But they're as good as Washington, probably on paper, maybe a little bit worse, but they have a
The better
coach who's at
coach.
least not going to completely screw the game up. Yeah, not close talent wise, but they have enough talent on the field that with a coach who's going to get them even at least, so this is a long-winded way of me telling you the Giants still have not shown me that they are going to take a subpar team and rub their face in the dirt. They've shown me that they are one of those teams. And unfortunately, Antwan, if I'm an expert on anything, it's on bad football. And
You and me
I,
both.
yeah, exactly. And I can tell you this, like I've covered enough Giants teams where, yes, when they play this type of schedule stretch, they will win some, but they will also lose some because they're not good enough to just wipe out the bad teams. They are one of the bad teams. That's how I
Yeah,
see it.
yeah, and that's kind of how I feel like it's important for the Jets too, because you want to prove that you're not one of those mediocre to bad teams. Then you have to win games like this. If you play well against the Chiefs, you beat the Eagles. The Broncos are what they are. So, uh, I mean, yeah, you got to, and you beat Buffalo. You beat Buffalo week 1. So, yeah, you got to win this game. You want to be in the playoffs. You want to contend to. You got the Chargers are coming up on Monday night. The Chargers have been underachieving. That's a possible win there.
Yep.
Although they have a tremendous quarterback in Justin Herbert, so that'll always keep them in games too. My worry with the Jets is just can they continue to find ways to score points, enough points to win games. It's easy to do that when your defense is playing well and helping you out, but what it becomes a time where your defense is off like for a game or so, and then you
Right.
need to score over 20 points. It's going to come that time, like whether it just be this probably not this week, but down the line, you're playing an explosive team there. You need to score some points, and it just doesn't happen. So that's my biggest worry about the Jets too. Like, can you beat the teams that you're supposed to beat? And if you can, then I think they will make the playoffs because they got a good run until they play Buffalo, really
Mm.
at a rematch, and then they play Miami the week after. So they have 3 games against the Giants, Chargers, Raiders that they could definitely win
Got
before
to get at least two
Buffalo.
out of those three. Yeah. You know what I'm curious about, Antwan, is what the stands will look like for this game because it's a Giants home game.
Yes.
And but then I've seen plenty of Giants games, even a couple this year, where you're looking at the stands and you're saying there's blue here, but there's a lot of cowboy white or silver or jet green, and so I'm very interested to see that split. How many Giants fans maybe sold their tickets onto the secondary market after the first couple home games? Like I have a feeling there could be more green in the stands than the Giants want there to
I,
be.
I could see that too. I was gonna say it might be like close to 50-50. Like, yeah, because it's I think the Jets feel optimistic. Their fan base feels optimistic of being 3-3. I thought with Aaron, if they had 3-3 with that stretch at the bye
Yeah,
week, I thought that would be an accomplishment. And then
good
now
point.
now they got it with Zach Wilson at quarterback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
you have to feel encouraged.
that's a good point. I have to ask you the question that everyone asks you probably every day. And that is, do you really put any stock into the fact that Rodgers, it's in some way is going to magically return to the football field this year if the Jets advance enough? Or are you just kind of waving that off and saying like, that's not worth my time. We'll get there in January if we talk
It's a
about it.
double-edged sword because if they make the playoffs, that means Zach Wilson is playing relatively, at least decently enough to get you there. So why take him out of that situation when he's got you there to rush a guy
Mhm.
back so soon that may not be, completely healthy too. So that's my thing too. So, and if you're not in the playoff race, then there's no reason to bring Aaron back either way. So yeah,
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
a double-edged sword either way. So yeah, I don't think so, but I think it's good for him and his mental psyche just to try to, accomplish that goal. But yeah, I
I
don't see
agree.
reason.
Yeah, I agree. It's good for his mental psyche. I question the I feel like it's an ego thing for him to keep pushing that publicly when clearly it probably wouldn't be the best thing for the team. And it's probably not the best thing for Zach, honestly, to hear all the time. Hey, if we do well, and like you said, if you lead this team to the playoffs, we're going to take your job away because this guy's coming back, right? It's just not, I don't know. It feels like self-serving to me.
Especially when he hadn't played football and probably it would have been like 4 or 5 months at that point. So, and then what happens? He gets that on the field. They have a bad game, and then Robert Solid, like he has to answer those questions, like why didn't you just keep Zach in, instead of keeping Aaron Rodgers in there? So
The bench Aaron Rodgers for Zach Wilson conversation will light the New York tabloid on fire officially. The
that,
back page will be on fire,
that's
Antwan.
why I say you got to kind of protect people from themselves. Like I think it's good that he's throwing the ball there, and like I said, I wrote about it prior to the Eagles game. But yeah, I don't see that happening. Just I just think
Gotcha.
he might be healthy enough, but it's one thing to be out there just tossing the football before the game or walking around, but it's another thing to avoid like 300-pound men on a regular, especially when you had not played football and a few months. He's gonna be rusty. Like
Well,
I mean, and he'll be 40 years old at that point too. By the way,
no doubt. And that's what you just said is kind of hits on the Daniel Jones thing too, is that, a guy with a neck injury who's not cleared for contact, like you don't just suddenly magically get cleared and then, hey, you just went from you can't afford to take a hit to you're going to play a position where you're going to get hit by 250, 300-pound men once out of every 3 to 4 plays. Like it doesn't work like that. You have to acclimate. That's part of the reason why until I see Daniel Jones on the field on a game day, like it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. Like as you and I talk this moment, it's Tyrod Taylor for this game. Like we'll see if that changes, but as of this moment, that's how I see
it's not like Madden where you just plug and play the guy and then it's he's all healthy now. Oh yeah, he's ready to go. He's got like 87 rating. Like yeah, let's do it. Like yeah, some
it.
people just think it's like that, but it's not definitely.
No doubt.
Before I get you out of here, just talk about this. What do you think some of the keys are for the Giants in this game?
I think you said it right off the bat, stopping Brees Hall in the running game, the Jets running game. Like if they can make the Jets one dimensional, which probably means getting an early lead, forcing the Jets to throw more than they want to, then that's how the Giants win the game. I mean, they were outscored it was something crazy, like 90 something to 13 in the first half of games going into the Washington game. And then they led 14 to nothing at the half, right? So that's part of the reason they won that game is they finally took an early lead. So early lead, stop the run, force the Jets to be one dimensional so you can get after Zach Wilson. Offensively, it's just going to be a heavy dose of Saquon Barkley, who has a hyperextended left elbow, but he played through it the rest of last week's game. It did result in a late game fumble. But I think, honestly, Antwan, it's going to be trying to avoid mistakes the same way that the Jets are going to be doing offensively. Like they had a muff punt by Sterling Shepard and a fumble by Saquon. And actually, I forgot to bring this up earlier when you asked about Kayvon, a dropped interception by Kayvon Thibodeau that probably would have iced the game. So 3 bad plays with the football. Like those are the things that the Giants, that's the main thing. No turnovers, no bad plays, no negative plays that give the Jets life and a short field. Because that's as well as the Giants defense has been playing, giving even Washington a short field last week. You know, the ball goes right into the end zone. And so that's what I would say. Stopping the run, scoring early, starting fast, and not turning the ball over.
Yeah, I think those are good keys, and it's kind of the same keys with the Jets too. I mean, one, I think they have to slow down the run. At times this year, even against the Broncos, they gave up a lot of rushing yards early in the game. It seemed like their defenses has a bend but don't break mentality. Like they'll give up the big plays early in the game. It like even the Eagles, game. The Eagles come out, score right away to get up 7-0, and they're kind of feel like they're behind the 8 ball there. So now you're kind of playing from behind. They end up coming back and winning, but I think getting off to that early start too. If I'm the Giants, I would look to get Saquon involved early and often. If you can get that, probably hit a big play there. Get up early in that game, and then force the Jets to kind of play from behind too as well.
And one fascinating thing I would add too about the way the Giants have been playing, even though they haven't been scoring a ton of points, Tyrod has been getting the ball downfield to Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt. He gives his receivers a chance to make plays. And why that interests me in this game is, as you know, like the Jets secondary and the safeties are very savvy at kind of sniffing those things out, swinging over top and kind of getting there before the ball does if they can read the coverage or read where the quarterback's going to go. So I think there's going to be a couple plays down the field that the Giants try to Hyatt or Slayton, where if the Jet safeties see it and read it quickly, it could be an opportunity for an interception coming the other way because Tyrod will put it up there for the guy to go get it. Or if they don't see it, it could be what we've seen so far, the Giants suddenly starting to pop some of these big ones to the 3rd-round pick out of Tennessee or to the veteran Slayton. And then those in a low-scoring game end up being big plays.
Yeah, and I also think one more key for the Jets is to get pressure. Like they don't have a lot of sacks this year. Like Quentin Williams' sack total is a little bit down.
Huh.
I think a lot of it's because he's being double teamed there, and that's kind of opened up some opportunities for guys like Bryce Huff and also Jermaine Johnson too as well. But yeah, you got a guy like Quentin that had 12 sacks a year ago. People kind of take notice of that and then decide, you know what, yeah, let's double team this guy and then force everybody else to kind of beat us. But yeah, I think their set total just from a year ago at this point are down. So yeah, that's why I think times you've seen them use the blitz. There's something that Robert Saleh typically doesn't necessarily like to do. That's why you kind of have him and Jeff Albrecht, Robert Saleh, and Wink Martindale. They have a contrasting styles where Wink likes to get pressure and generate a ton of pressure with blitzes where, the Jets don't necessarily like to do that unless they have to, which at times they feel like they had to this year.
That's interesting because the Giants they've been missing Andrew Thomas, the left tackle, John Michael Schmitz, their center, and Evan Neal last week, their right tackle, all due to injury. Thomas hasn't played since week 1. There was a thought that he might ramp back up, that they were kind of holding him to get him healthy for this Jets game. But again, nobody knows. He hasn't been on the practice field. He had a setback in practice a couple of weeks ago. So, I didn't list this as a key to the game, but even just with the Jets 4-man rush, if the Giants offensive line doesn't get healthy enough to have Thomas at left tackle, kick Pugh into left guard, the center could be Bredesen or Schmitz, but they really do need that left side to be to have that elite player, frankly, as the bookend tackle. Otherwise, it's hard for me to envision them blocking the Jets consistently for 4 quarters.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting game there. Obviously, we'll be there to cover it. Pat, just tell everybody where they can find you on all your social media platforms and everything that you do.
Yeah, well, of course, we're on the Believe Network together. I'm on Talking Ball with Pat Leonard. Love having you on as well. We'll do one later in the year, I'm sure, maybe before the Jets hit the playoffs. And that's available
Maybe.
everywhere. Yeah,
Maybe. Yeah.
exactly. And then my YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok are all the same handle at PL, my initials on NFL, and then Twitter at P Leonard NYDN. We're really doing a lot on YouTube, though. That's where I want to tell people go to YouTube, subscribe at PL on NFL. We do live chats now, Antwan, one post game and one during the week, usually Thursday night football halftime. And we're kind of building a really good community there. So YouTube's where it's at right now.
All right, yeah, and you can always find me at Antwan Staley on all the platforms there. Also, my show Backpage Breakdown twice a week too as well. So yeah, check us out there, and we'll have another episode for you later this week as we're broadcast by Bet Online as well. So thank y'all.
Antwan, been great.